All right, guys. Now we're going to be taking your questions in regards to social media marketing and leadership. So,
What are some good cold calling tactics?
fuck.
Cold calling tactics. Well, that's
Old school.
yeah. Well, I think one of the ways to do it is obviously you're gonna to me it's you're gonna collect business cards first. If you have business cards, they usually like stack up. One of the things I learned was that if you send an email first and then you call them and you ask if they received their email, because that's a good way to like have them be like, oh, when did you send it? Oh, I sent it to you yesterday. Let's just play this out, right? So like if I have a business card for a bakery or something like that, and I give her an email or I send the person an email and introducing the business, and then I call them the next day and I say, my name's Gabriela, I work with Vision Paradox. I just wanted to make sure you received my email I sent yesterday. And then they're likely to say, oh, let me check, or I haven't gone around to it. What's this in regards to? And it kind of like opens up the door a little bit to now say who you are. I just wanted to introduce myself. I work with Vision Paradox. We're a social media marketing team. We, specialize this, that, and the other. Just wanting to see if you're available to chat about how we can work together. That's one of the tactics that I've learned throughout like some of my internships, and it does actually work. Not all the time, but it does get your foot in on the phone. Let's just say, so that they don't like hang up within 2 seconds. So that's one way for cold calling, because it can be pretty intimidating doing cold calls because you're still like in that fear of rejection or getting hung up on. But once you get over like a couple of calls, you're fine. After a while, you can just pick up a phone and just start calling people.
It's just like really just getting over those few warm-up sets and then going on, and then before you start getting used to it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Because then you kind of just also like write down like your own little script of what you want to say, right? But you can tweak it to every time you talk about something, it's going to be a little bit different. So that you feel a little bit more comfortable, because either you can be really mechanical about it and just keep going through all these calls, or you can kind of put a little bit more effort into each call and see if that works. A little bit more personable. The tone of your voice, try to change it up a little bit. Some people are like super, super busy, so they don't really want to like waste too much time on the phone with you. Or if you're trying to get to like the main person, you're going to end up calling a receptionist or an info line.
Oh yeah, that whole like,
what's this in regards to? Or how can I help you? Or they don't have time. Or there's a bunch of different like
the gatekeepers.
Yeah. So I think that's one tactic that I know of.
I mean, I hate cold calling, so that's all you. So like, that's still, so like, for me, I'm not I'm not even gonna answer the question, because it's like, it's honestly not my strength. But I just know with my strength, you put me in, if I do a pitch meeting, that's where I know I can kill it. It's just like the initial, I'm more comfortable going to networking events and actually talking to them there, because in that setting, people are much more in the like direction, they're in the need, they're actually looking. So it's like, I'm looking, so to be honest, cold calling still intimidates me, but that method kind of intrigues me when I do these, like, do get these these business cards. So definitely she's got a one up on me on that, so not much to say for me. So how do experts who put up so much free content on social media and podcasts make money? A lot of people think, because like, why are you giving your best stuff away? Or like, aren't you like that? That's where it's coming from. Like, some people like think just because you're giving your best stuff away and not asking for anything, people are thinking that you're losing money on it. Because like, when you see people on YouTube or on these podcasts, you're getting, and especially the ones that are really good, that give a lot really good information, a lot of them, it does bring up that question. It's like, damn, why aren't they charging for this? How they make money is they can either sell, like they either monetize their audience. Like some people, this is where it gets a little like gray for some people, because there are some people who strongly believe that you shouldn't monetize your audience via the information you give, because if you monetize your audience through the information, that means you're kind of in a situation where you give only like 60% of your stuff, and then you give your best like later if they join your mastermind or if you join your online course. So that's where it puts people in that kind of ethical situation, like I'm giving like okay information, but those who are genuinely giving their best information or their best content, they find other ways of monetizing their audience, or through either merchandise, like shirts, physical products, like anything that's actual, or even speaking gigs. Those are several ways to do it. Interviews, some people get paid to do interviews or to make appearances, or sponsored posts or sponsored videos. So which is like, if you see it on YouTube, some people are like, they do a quick little blurb for their sponsors in the beginning of the video, then go to the rest of the content. Or even Instagram influencers, these guys make a living off monetizing their platform just through posting brand sponsored posts. Or they also have an actual business that they run on the side, or they actually have a main primary business. So some of these people you see online, they might have a regular job, or they might have an actual business where they run, and these social media platforms, or their personality on these platforms, is just a hobby or a side hustle they do for fun. So yeah, hopefully that gives some perspective. You can monetize your audience, or they can monetize their audience, or they have other streams of revenue that they're bringing in, that that allows them the freedom to share a lot of this free content. Because
like Patreon too, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that another? Yeah,
Patreon's a good way to do it. So like, if you're Patreon's a good way of monetizing your audience. It's very popular amongst YouTubers to help support your lifestyle, and to support creators to do what they want to do, which is primarily make money doing YouTube videos. But not everyone can make that AdSense money, because you have to be at a very high, I think, watch time and subscriber count. And getting there is very much the long game, and those who want support to do what they love. And it's to backtrack real quick, to be at that top 1% of YouTube takes a lot of work, and it's very much the long game. For those who who are really trying to make a living off this, but they don't have the capital to invest in equipment or invest in editors or even the right programs, Patreon's a good way to go about it. So there's a lot of ways. I think that just about covers it. So
next question. Why is team building important? I think both of us obviously can speak on the team building, because you like a lot of team building stuff too. It's just so important to have a team building experience, even if it's like something as small as going out to eat afterwards. A lot of the times that I've experienced, it's always like, hey, after work, you guys want to go to IHOP, or like, you guys want to go eat, or
go hiking, like that one time.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We needed to do something like that.
Yeah.
But it gives you a chance to kind of like talk to everybody on a personal level. And I think that it helps with the team building, so that way people feel more of a connection with each other and a support system. I've noticed that if you don't build a team that wants to work together, your projects are gonna get delayed, or for instance, if you work a different job or like industry or whatever, any type of goal that you have for the day is gonna get it's gonna be harder to achieve, because you guys aren't working as a team. If everyone's just out as individual workers, I don't know, sometimes if there's like a team goal, then it's harder to achieve if you're not really like supporting each other. And I think the only way to support each other is to enjoy each other. Most of the time.
Good point, yeah.
If you enjoy working with each other and you enjoy the person, sometimes people can work together and not like be friends, which is fine, but it's not as effective, I don't think. And I don't think it brings out the best in everybody if you're only like trying to be a solo player.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I mean, I think with team building, there's this whole thing of you can run a company with fear and still get good results. But I think a team that loves, like, what the company stands for, loves the vision, they're fully enrolled into it. People will give more of themselves if they believe they're working for something that's a bigger picture, and that's something outside of themselves. When it comes to team building, I feel like when people go into a work or the workplace, it can be very one-dimensional. You're here for this purpose only, and then everything else is just forgotten. My favorite thing about team building is that it removes the walls that people put up in the workplace. Like when you go into a workplace and you act a certain way and you speak a certain way, but when you start getting to know one another, you start feeling out each other's like tendencies, each other's like what pushes each other's buttons. That's what team building is. You find out the best and the worst of the person, because I'm a firm believer of you don't know a person until you've seen their worst. It helps build the culture and the love of the team. And I think that one of the things that's super important for me with the VP is the amount of laughter we have in the meetings, because if you're not enjoying it, then it's like that's someone's time they're giving you. That's someone's time they're giving to someone's company. And if they're begrudgingly going to work and they just because they need to check in the box of trying to pay rent or whatever, it's like it sucks, because I want people who work with us to be happy, to enjoy themselves, to feel like they're actually moving towards something that helps them grow. And then I think team building is
essential,
and it's
you gotta have it.
Yeah,
you gotta have it. You gotta well, that's the leadership that is in place. Is like a lot of the times the leadership has to create the company culture. Yeah, because I think it all starts from the top, because if the leader from the top is very distant, and then that's the culture he's gonna create with everyone. And then because again, it all starts from the top. But if the leader is very empathetic, listens to other people, tries to make that fun energy exist within the workplace, then people are going to be relaxed. And I feel like people can perform better if they're more in a relaxed space where they feel safe, where they feel like people have got their back. I'm pretty sure you might have seen some of these weird, awkward, odd couple type movies where it's like two complete different strangers, but they have to work with each other. Like they hate it at first because they don't know each other. They have their own agendas and they're butting heads, but they have to work with each other. It's almost like all these Saw movies, the ones where they have to work together, figure out the puzzles. But because they have their own egos and agendas, everything messes up. But when they come together and they figure out how they can all work as a unit, that's where I think the magic happens, because there's an unspoken kind of energy that kind of is created, that creates the whole magic of bouncing off ideas with one another, because then it starts creating a whole group flow, and which is essential. And if you guys are interested in that, check out the book The Rise of Superman, where they talk about group flow, because once the team building and the chemistry is more established, then the flow of each other's ideas bouncing off one another is just happens more naturally instead of forced. Our ideas whenever we're what are we gonna do for the next episode?
Oh my god, yeah, we love doing these episodes. We never know what we're really gonna do, because it's just how do I create, market, and sell courses online? Okay, that's the sigh, because it's such a huge project. And I think the biggest problem that a lot of people do when they start doing with online courses, first off, let's get it clear that online courses is not a get-rich-quick scheme, because it just isn't, because there's so much work that goes into creating a course, a really good course, actually. So first off, I think what's going to help you effectively sell your online course is have an audience to distribute distributed to. Distributed?
Distribute.
Yeah. So either you can, make get connections with influencers relevant in your space, that are obviously not rivaling you, or ride the attention. It's pretty much, if you don't have an email list, or an audience or a platform, with 10,000 emails or 10,000 Instagram followers that are legit, if you don't have a platform, then selling your online course is going to be a pain in the ass, because you create something that you don't even know is going to work, and you have no one to sell it to. There's no attention. So that's, I think, one of the important elements is having an audience to sell it to. Who are you trying to get enrolled into your course? From there, if you don't have one, try to ride the coattail of someone who does have an audience. And so, like I said, work with other influencers. I think you have to figure out where you can leverage or get attention if you don't have it. And the next thing is, talk to the people you're selling it to. It's one thing to assume that you know what the end user wants, to assume that you know their problems, but it's another thing to really understand it at such a deep level, where they literally tell you and say, damn, you are reading my mind right now. And the way you do that is you talk to at least 30 to 50 people in your space who you think will benefit from this. Don't talk to other entrepreneur friends. Don't talk to your mom and dad or your brother or sister. Talk to people who you think are going to do well. You're trying to market it to. If it's, I don't know, dancers. A product. When I did product research for one of the apps that we've still been in development, I don't know.
Still in process.
Well, for everyone who's asking about Sequence, still in process. And so, but what we did with that was we interviewed probably nearly 200 dancers. We probably didn't have to do that much, but I wanted to make sure that we had we find the patterns and what the challenges they go through, how much they're willing to pay. There's just basic questions that help me get clarity, because when you're creating your course, you're not sure how much to sell, or how you want to, or what their problems are. When you create your course, you want to clearly define what problem you want to solve. Because if you're thinking from a place of, this is going to make me money, you're going to lose. One of the courses I created flopped because I came from that space. And then now I flipped it, and I'm reapproaching the course. It's doing better, but because it did crappy the first time, it's been a long climb back. But when you think of the person on the other side first, it's just gonna work 10 times better, because then it's about them. It's about helping them. So that's why you want to talk to the people that you're trying to sell to, and then from there, once you have an audience that you want to sell to, a better understanding of who you're trying to sell to, then from there you create the course, and then make sure it's as best quality as you can afford. My first course, I was blessed with my friend who owned a studio at the time to let me use his stuff. But as he moved his production studio to another city that's a little way too far from me, gas wise, in terms of LA. He's not in San Diego, but it's just it doesn't make sense for me to go through all the traffic. But through the years, I've used just my phone to film all my stuff, and that works just as fine. So do it as the best you can, as high quality as you can, and then once you create your course, obviously the technical stuff is finding a place to host it. That's the stuff you can figure out along the way. And the next thing is upkeep. Make sure you keep your stuff up to date. Make sure you're following up with your students. Make sure there's a way to make everything super actionable, because most people who enroll in your courses aren't going to do anything, because I think that's one of the reasons why I think iPhone is super successful, because it's it walks you through everything. Everything's pretty much hand-holding. And when it comes to change, when you want to make sure that your course is super actionable, literally you want to walk them step by step, hold their hand, because when it comes to change, when it comes to learning something new, to just say here's the course, and say let them go, it can be intimidating for a lot of people, especially if they're new to the content, to the type of content you're sharing. because there's like complete beginners that like who don't know what they want yet, but a guide will help, or some experts who could probably do the whole you pick your own adventure kind of thing. So again, it goes back to talking to the people who you're trying to sell this to. Like ask them like, do you want step by step? The wording for the question would kind of have to be finessed, but that's you want to talk to the people to see how to best serve them. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much how I think you can create a really good selling course.
What are some of the ways to be an effective leader? Some of the ways that I think of.
Some of the ways
has to be, you got to be in it with them. You got to be an effective leader, you got to lead by example. It seems like so cliche to say, right? All the time you always hear lead by example, but you really do though, because if you're not the person that's on time, then why do you expect your team to be on time or your staff to be on time? If you're the one who's always running late, then they're going to see that and they're going to think that you're not taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. So I think leading by example is certainly a way to be an effective leader. Another way to be an effective leader is to do one-on-ones with people and like not just talk to them about work, but just a little bit of like, you know, hey, how's your day? How's everything going? Yeah. A little like small talk, you know, goes a long way. They can give you as much as information that they want, or they don't have to tell you anything. Yeah. But I think being an empathetic leader is also a good way to be an effective leader, because people seem to be a little bit more respectful towards you. Mm-hmm. And I think they also feel that, well, this is what I know from what my staff sometimes will tell me is just, you know, you're really easy to talk to, or thanks for listening, or yeah, it looks like you really care. It's been a couple of times where I will have staff who's having a bad day outside of work and they come in and they're like not feeling it, or they, you know, I don't know, it's just something's going on outside of work. And usually when they get hired, they're supposed to know everything stays outside, and when you're you're there to work. Yeah. But if you don't kind of like clear it up at the beginning, then they're going to have like their mind on it the whole time that they're there at work. But if you give them like 2 minutes or allow them to kind of like just let it out, then it's not there anymore. And then you say things like, okay, well now, you know, let's have a good time at work. Let's focus on being here now that we've kind of like talked about it. Another way to be an effective leader, I think, is not talking down to people. And it's hard for me. It's hard for me also to think that everyone knows how to do something, and not everybody does know how to do what you ask them, right? And if you look at them, and this has happened to me a couple of times and I'm working on it, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So if I look at you like, I can't believe you just asked me that question. Like, did you really just ask me that question? They're not gonna feel they're not gonna feel safe. Yeah, they're not gonna feel comfortable. They're gonna feel like you're judging them, and they're gonna be kind of like, you know, their self-esteem goes lower, and then they feel like they can't do the job, or that they can't come to you and ask questions. So you have to be patient with your staff and your people. Not everyone's gonna know how to do something. Yeah. So you gotta be like, okay, I can't assume that you're gonna know how to talk to a customer appropriately. Just because you know how to do it doesn't mean that that person knows how to do it, but your job is to teach them how to do it, or guide them, or coach them, or give them tips on how to perform better, or how to like approach the situation better. Maybe we try it this way, give them suggestions. And then like let them figure it out also. Like, I think I'm not the type of leader who kind of is a micromanager. I'll give them direction and then I'll check up on them. But I want to allow the person to have some room to like think about it. Because I don't want to tell them exactly how to do it. I want to like give them my expectations of what it's supposed to look like. But I want to give them a little bit of room for like them to use resources, or to kind of like train their, develop a little bit more, I guess. I don't know if that's it's like I want them to develop as individuals, and use resources. That's my big thing, is like, I know how to pull from my resources, but I want my people to know how to pull from their resources. So what else do you think?
What makes an effective? I think you said a lot of it. I mean, definitely, like my first experience as a leader was with my dance crew back in 2004, 2005, like when we first started. And I remember I was leading the rehearsal and I was frustrated because I was dealing with newbies, but in my head I had this expectation that everyone should pick up the choreography at the same speed I do. And then a screeching halt came when my friend said, slow down, Emeroy, we're not as fast as you. And I'm like, and then that's where it clicked. I realized I was trying to force a level on them that they weren't ready for. So it stressed them out and created more anxiety instead of making the process fun. So I mean, there's challenging, like you want them to be challenged, but you want them to be able to execute it with like that. You want it to be enough for them where they have to stretch a little bit, but not overwhelming. And then for me, that's where I learned that, meet them where they're at. And then, because some, like what she said, like not everyone's gonna know something. Yeah, I think that's, and then one of them, in terms of being a leader, I think is learning how to let go.
Let it go.
So, because if you're the leader, I believe in both leading from the front and leading from the back. Like you lead and take charge. You be the example. Like I said earlier, it starts from the top. But then because you're the leader, you also have the benefit of having the 10,000 foot view of the bigger picture. So you got to be able to do both. So you can see where your team is coming from, the challenges they go through, but being the one that also gets to call the shots, you can shift the direction. Because if you're in the trenches with them, you have a better feel of making the right calls. Because if you're leading from the back the whole time, if you're just and never meeting them where they're at, then the decisions you make could be based off your own assumptions, your own and you could completely lead them off course based or may even make things worse because you don't know the reality of the situation. Then definitely agree, 100% agree with empathy, and I think you said all of it.
It's hard to since we don't see each other all the time, to show leadership, but I think Emeroy's doing a really good job when we see his charts, his little sticky notes. And,
my God, you're seeing
how he he's got his sticky notes
you guys
right
might
there,
have seen
guys.
it in the vlog or the other videos, but yeah.
He's very organized in his way of doing his daily stuff. And I think a good leader shows you and how he shows us how he does his day. He's not telling us how to do the day, but he's just giving us ideas on how to be effective and to have a productive day and stuff like that. And I think that's when we work so remotely, him always being the one that wants to do check-ins and get us on the phones and get us in for meetings, having that person who does the push, pushing a little bit of that type of thing also makes a really good leader, is the one who takes initiative. So just wanted to say that about, because we're so small. We don't have our own little office where we see each other all the time.
Yeah, I think that's been honestly the greatest challenge for VP, is because we don't see each other's face. It's harder to do the team building and chemistry. So
it's just a good thing we either know each other from previous experience or that he's dating someone else. I was kidding.
Well, we got to talk to HR about. Well, to provide context, if it's your first time watching this, Maxine, who's also the executive assistant and client liaison of VP, she's also my girlfriend. But I always had the intention of working with her, whether I ended up with her or not. But surprisingly, there's this whole thing where people say you shouldn't go into business with friends or family or whoever,
Lovers.
because that's like asking for trouble. And I think it's right or wrong depending on the people you work with, because when you, now we're going off into a tangent, but just to answer this self-asked question, is that you have to be aware of who you're working with, because it comes back down to not how smart they are, but how emotionally intelligent are they. How, because when you go into, you might feel good working with someone, but you also have to take into consideration of like, what do they do with, how do they handle finances? How do they work? How are they working with other people? How are they working when they're under pressure? So you have to remove the veil of friendship real quick. And before you go into business with anyone, you have to see how they are with those types of aspects in their own personal life. Because if that's how they work by default in their own life, then by default, they're going to bring that into the business. So, and I'm lucky enough to work with friends who I think have insanely high emotional intelligence, who can practice empathy. And it's, I think that's an important element that I think as time moves forward, a lot of businesses are going to start implementing, because we don't live in a generation, at least from my own observations, we don't live in a generation where people are just in there to clock in and clock out. Most people are here because they want to do something that fulfills them for the most part. And then VP, it's been a blessing to work with people who I vibe with, who we can get into like actual serious talks with, but not to the point where we like are salty or hating each other, because we have the ability, we have the emotional intelligence that to know this is business time and then there's friend time. And I think for a lot of people, they can say that, but to actually do it is another thing. And I think having that, it all comes back down to emotional intelligence. Whether it's going into business with a friend or a leader, having that emotional intelligence helps out. It's good to be smart, but if you can't connect with people, you suck shit. So straight up. So because people are the game, you're going to work with people. Your intelligence might get you to a certain place, but the people you work with are going to get you to the whole new level, to the new mountaintop you're trying to get to. So that's my piece. So
keep on climbing.
So that's it for this episode of Vision Paradox. Answers your questions while we do stuff. #AskVP. If you guys have any questions that you guys want to ask us, hit us up on YouTube, DM us on Instagram, or message or tweet us. Hit us up on Twitter. Okay, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and we'll catch you guys soon. Peace.
Thank you.